You're listening to the Business and Life Podcast, where 7 days a week, proven entrepreneurs share their success stories, failures, and give you true value on how you can build a great business and an awesome life. With your host, Mike Olivas.
What's happening, guys? Today I'm chatting with Josh Rivedal, who is the CEO of the Impossible Project, which educates, entertains, engages, and provides programming on mental health, suicide, prevention, and mental nutrition. All right, Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to chatting with you here today. So tell our listeners where you're from and maybe something interesting about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm originally from New Jersey, but I've been in Los Angeles for about 4 years.
Okay.
And I am about 9 months from my black belt in Taekwondo.
What?
Yeah, dude.
Oh, yep. Roundhouse and peeps. Watch out.
Know it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Man.
Good for you. That's very cool. All right. So let's chat a little bit about the Impossible Project. Kind of, what is the Impossible Project?
Well, it started out with me and me telling my story, but really it's a big umbrella for stories and curriculum and education. But again, it is story driven, and I really want to take a look at not just my life but other people's lives and bring some taboo topics out from the shadows and just improve connectivity and community. Individually, within communities, within the world, because stories save us. They change lives, they help people, and they bring new light to things that people, have been scared of in the past. So, we talk a lot about mental health, suicide prevention, moving into a space called mental nutrition, but, social justice stuff, because it's very, I wouldn't say trickle down. It's more like trickle up, just we talk about, a lot of, public health. They talk about prevention, and it's at the very last minute. Well, I'd rather not be reactive. Let's be proactive. So that's kind of the approach that I'm taking.
And how did you jump into this? Tell us a little bit about your story, if you don't mind, Josh.
Yeah, not at all. So about 11 years ago, so I'm 36 in a week, but about 11 years ago, I lost my dad to suicide. 40 some odd years prior, my dad lost his dad to suicide. Never something we talked about in the home. Again, you don't own your story, it's going to eat you alive. And it certainly did. And in fact, after I lost my dad, my story almost ate me alive. Like, I was living with undiagnosed mental illnesses, depression and anxiety. Not a death sentence, not something that really takes me out of my day now. But when I'm not, learning how to manage it and play with it, it was eating me alive. So I nearly attempted suicide back in 2011, 9 years ago. And coming out of that and getting help and counseling and friends and research and neuroscience was like, I need to be in the service of other people to feel whole again. And so that became a big mission of mine, is just to use story and educate people and show them facts where, taboo and different things that filled in the blanks. So that's how I started. And my background originally was professional acting and playwriting, and I was doing that in New York City. And then I took a left turn, and I was like, let me combine that with, with my passion for advocacy. And so that's the intersection of where the Impossible Project and what I'm doing.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So you had a background on literally the background of what you do now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Behind the curtains literally is where you were working with, but you put your feelings out there in front of the curtains. And I appreciate that. In terms of that story, Josh, I think a lot of people on this show, you've heard me say many times, the mess becomes the message or the mission, right? And you definitely have done that. And I think it's so important, especially in this day and age where people are masking so many things. And I'm working on a book called The Antisocial Network, and a lot of that has there's some mental health angles and research there where there's just people are masking everything, literally all the way down to something called a filter that psychologically does something, right? When that's not who you look like, but when you look in the mirror, it's not who reflects what you're posting on Facebook and Instagram. And there's a lot of things there on crazy mixed messages that I think people need to hear these stories, and obviously your message. Tell me, what is the message? What are you trying to get out there to who is your target demographic in terms of the business side?
Yeah. So, at the moment, I'd say my biggest demographic, and it's changing, but at the moment it's almost strictly college students and or higher ed professionals. Definitely moving more into the workplace space. Why I'm doing stuff called mental nutrition, because it's more palatable. It's like, it's friendly. It's nutrition. We kind of understand that. And I'm developing a mental nutrition pyramid. where it's kind of like the food pyramid, except for like these are 6 food groups that you need, for the nourishment of your brain. There's even junk food at the top, so you can have a little excess sometimes. Don't go overboard, kind of a thing. But right now it's mostly college and higher ed professionals, and like regardless, there's a lot of different ways semantically to distill a message. But I think my main one is there's hope, there's healing, there's people out there that want to help you. And kind of what your MO, like make your mess your message, like own your story. I give a little bit of an analogy. I tell people at the end of my talks, no matter who it is, like tell your story. And sometimes people will say, well, Josh, you've been through all this stuff. And like, you've had these like bleeding open wounds, like metaphorically speaking, all I have is a hangnail. I'm like, yeah, well, somebody across the room has a hangnail too. And they feel silly bringing it up. And guess what? 20 years ago, my depression at age 8, 9 was a hangnail, and it became a bloody open wound because I wasn't talking about it. So the more we talk and the more we connect, the safer and the more, more fulfilled and happy and healthy we all will be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What, in terms of the colleges, let's talk a little bit about that. Are you actually are a lot of colleges bringing you on board? Do you find it hesitant? What are some of the challenges right now on the business side to be able to get into some of those colleges?
Yeah, so I think some of the challenges on that end, a lot of colleges like the programming that they request is super valid, and a lot of colleges are like, and I work on a lot of colleges, like I probably work about 40 a year, I'd say, between the 2 semesters. But what I'm finding is like they're willing to do the surfacey stuff. Like we definitely need to address alcohol and other drugs. We definitely need to delve into harassment and rape culture and a variety of things. But to me, a lot of that stuff stems from one's mental health and life skills and things that kind of tie in there. So I think a lot of colleges see these are the symptoms, so we need to address the symptoms rather than saying, well, what's the deeper root cause? Like, why are they binge drinking? Oh, it's because they're running away from their childhood, or they don't know how to cope with loss and change. And so that becomes their method of coping. And so we're not talking about that. So I find that a lot of, professionals, even though they're willing to have this conversation, they want to isolate it to like one time period, like September, October, or May. They want to have a different conversation because it's a little easier or they're more used to it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
What are you excited about within like the industry right now?
I'm really excited to hear other people's stories. Like I'm excited to hear more and more people opening up. I'm excited about seeing young men being more and more vulnerable.
Good.
Because I've been, reading a lot about masculinity. I don't love the toxic masculinity term, but there's toxicity in any sort of gender expression. But I'm loving seeing young men saying to another young man, I love you, I care about you, in different ways, but like being a little more open. And so the message is seeping through. It's taking time. We got a lot of catch up to do as a society, but I'm seeing in our younger people, like there's a lot of distress, but there's also a lot of progress.
Have you found any similarities across, let's say, different colleges and excuse me, and speaking engagements that you've had that allow the men or women to open up? Like what is the kind of target, or what is the trigger there, you think?
Yeah, so I think a couple things. For one, because I'm so open and vulnerable and honest, it sort of leads to that, right?
Good.
So for men,
others doing it.
Yeah, big time. And then so I think the fact that they see somebody who's real and a little bit raw too. Like I'm willing to talk about my foibles and, having recently have been, been divorced and what that did for my mental health, and talking about some of the things that I mess up on. Like, one of the things I say is like, if I'm in business or if I'm in, leadership, I'm speaking about that. I'm telling you, hey, look at me, like I'm great and do what I do. What I'm telling you with my talks is look at me, I messed up, right. And, figure out how to cope in similar ways that I did on the healthier end. So I'm seeing that. And then I'm also seeing like when there is a lot of time for like smaller groups and breakouts and stuff like that, we end up having really big conversations. Like sometimes I'll be brought in to like an interfraternity council, like men's group retreat. And then, I'll design the weekends, and then we'll have like process groups and stuff. And like, so what the world sees is like these meatheads, these knuckleheads. And what I get a chance to see is like, we get to do that playing basketball or hanging out. But once it's time to do those small groups, like I see these really vulnerable, sensitive, kind young men. It's really cool.
We're going to dive into our guests' experiences in business and life after this quick message. Life Nation, are you struggling with growing your business and hitting goals? Or are you over the 9-to-5 grind, finally ready to take the dive into entrepreneurship? What are you waiting for? Go to michaelolivas.com to set up a free, no obligation coaching call today. That's MIKEOLIVAS.com. I can help you. It may be the best call you've ever made.
What's the end goal for you? What do you want to do with the Impossible Project?
So with the Impossible Project, I'm moving, toward mental nutrition. So like what I'd really like to see is to see some more systemic change. So I'm currently working towards a degree in organizational psychology. And I don't know that I necessarily need a degree, but I just want more of a knowledge base, meet more colleagues, and then probably moving into like doctorate of public health, because I want to see, I want to go way upstream. And either teach or continue to push out the curriculum that I have, but make more societal changes, to do stuff on a more systemic level. That's what I see is like sort of the broad goal. And then there's like, stuff that exists under that. But I'd like us to see, to do like less speaking and more like getting our hands dirty.
Good.
And working with systems.
Do you think the mental nutrition angle is do you feel that's where the root cause could be? Is that why you kind of chose mental nutrition?
Yeah, I do. I think I think it's relatively easy to understand. I've been sort of testing out, what to call it, and then some of the subsets, and it's somewhat in the very beginning stages. But I even see that as its own industry at some point. Like it would be a combo. It's still in the very early formative stages, but I'm working with a variety of different professionals. Like I see it where it could be a combination of like a food nutritionist, like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like, to put it simply, is like a kind of a mix of like counseling, therapy, and life coaching. It's very solutions oriented. We don't dive into the past too much. So like I see like, you have a mental nutritionist, like I need a 30-minute pick me up, or I need to like work on my lifestyle design, and boom. So it's a mix of a few different things, and it would be low cost. It's not $200 an hour. It would be something like as an add-on for like a life coach or a therapist to add on to their practice.
Nice.
So that's a little bit down the road.
Yeah.
But I do think that like people just need like a quick pick me up, and like they're not always in distress. Like I don't need to jump into like counseling. I love it. Like I'm a big fan, but not everyone needs that all the time. But they do need a quick pick me up, and they might be on the road. They might be that tractor trailer driver, or the guy who bounces between Bogota and PR. And they're just like, I just need something. I need 30 minutes like once a month. So that kind of a thing.
I think that's a really good idea. I think I was a dietetics major.
Okay.
So we look at it now, and I try to keep up with it, but everything changes. It's like sugar's good, sugar's bad, sugar's the fat. Like it changes every 5 seconds. Right? So the ADA, the American Dietetic Association, that book's gigantic, and it changes every year. And just like I can't keep up. But what I do know, and what I learned, and what I think is apparent across the board, is mental health starts within, and it is within, right? And it works its way out. Nutritional health has so many different factors as far as it being legitimately, very, very legitimately, and I'm not a doctor here, but can cure the majority of things with food and what you put in your body. And there's so much data behind that, right? But I like when you kind of are talking about mental nutrition. I think that's pretty cool. And it's cool to kind of catch, or kind of not necessarily a phrase, but definitely hopefully a industry that can be coming up, because food can also make you feel really good. Because when you feel good, you look good, you're nutritionally like just sound. I mean, there's a win-win and confidence level across the board. And then obviously fitness coming into play as well too. So I love that, man. I'd love to hear some more about that down the road. So you're kind of you're living in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You've taken that. So when did you start, by the way, Impossible Project?
So I started the beginnings of it. I started in end of 2011, and it became an actual thing. Yeah. Like as I was speaking and doing everything. So I'd say officially like 2014.
Okay.
So it's been about a little over 6 years, and then like the whole thing a little over 8. So
okay. What kind of advice would you give to some entrepreneurs out there trying to start something up like you've done? You've obviously been successful doing it.
I would say test first. Like, don't create stuff in a vacuum. Like, find people who you think are like, if you know sort of the direction that you're moving into, start surrounding yourself with people who are either doing that or doing stuff tangentially to that. Just so, because if you're, running your own ship, you're going to have to know some elements of a variety of different things. So just start playing and learning. I think learn how to write, learn how to speak really well. Like, you don't have to be the greatest. You can always hire out eventually, but learn how to speak and talk about what you do. And I think be willing to fail, like lean into that for sure. Like failing doesn't mean you're a failure. I think, a lot of us in the personal development space would agree with that. So like lean into that, try not to lose a lot of money, while you're failing, but take those failings as battle scars. Like, you didn't fail, 9,000 times, you found 9,000 ways it didn't work. So 9,001, boom, there you go. Right. I'd say, like, don't test in a vacuum, surround yourself with really smart people. If you're the smartest person in the room, you probably shouldn't be there. So, yeah.
I love that. Definitely surround yourself around good people. Bring on people that are smarter than you. That's definitely humbling and hard to do sometimes in different companies. And we stress it, other people stress it, but I hope our listeners understand it. Put the ego to the side and be like, good, this is a good thing that the company is what moves forward in that entrepreneurship journey when you do that. Out of all your successes and failures, if there was one thing you had to choose to give, like a piece of advice to an aspiring entrepreneur, someone that wants to start a business, what would you tell that person?
I'd say try to be as present as possible. Because you can learn so much from the moment. I mean, like, for sure, like, there's a lot of lessons in the past, but the present, because there's like almost an infinite amount of possibilities. And when we start future tripping, I mean, then we're just not appreciating what's happening now and the growth that we're experiencing. Like, life is made up of baby steps. It's rarely those big things. I mean, there's certainly a lot of times they're pretty memorable, but you got to take baby steps to get to that place in the first place. And when you get to that place where there's a potential big moment, you're not going to know how to own it unless you take the necessary steps. So try not to take shortcuts. Take that path and be as present as possible.
I love that. Stop future tripping. I always say, enjoy the journey, not the outcomes. It'll come, right? But enjoy the journey for sure. Love the game of biz, not just the money that people sometimes assume will come, and they assume it's going to come faster. And, taking 10 years to become an overnight success is the norm.
Right.
A lot of people kind of, it's like they see the Instagram winners and all these guys, and it's like, guys, patience is huge. So I appreciate all that information. Where can people find you, by the way? I want to make sure that we get all that info out to you.
So I'm my website. You can go to IAM, as in Mary, IAMpossibleproject.com, or you can find me at my personal site, joshuarivedal.com, JOSHUARIVEDAL.com.
All right, guys, check him out. Joshua Rivedal is going to be on the show notes. All these websites will also be there. Just simply type his name in the search engine widget. When this is live, that will be live as well. Josh, thanks so much for dropping some knowledge with us today.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely.
Life Nation, you got to remember that in order for things to change, you must change. And in order for things to get better, you must get better. You just got better by hanging out with me, Michael Libas, and the Business and Life Nation. So come back tomorrow, because I'm here dropping sound bombs 7 days a week, baby. If you'd like to subscribe, please do, so you can take action and execute. See you tomorrow.